Yo, what is up, everybody? It's the Raw Prospect Podcast. We're back with episode 49 here, and holy crap, it's been a minute, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been, I guess, a little over 2 years now. And we're
2 years? What?
Yeah, it's been, we started this late in the summer of 2018.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant, like, since our last podcast. I was like, what? Yeah.
We started, doing this a little over 2 years ago. So to make it all the way to almost 50 episodes is pretty amazing. I think we deserve a pat on the back for that.
But, yeah, that's wild, man. It's really hard to, like, put that into perspective. I'm like, it's crazy. But
we got a lot to talk about today, but let's just first just have like a fun discussion about how life's going, what's going on in the world of Emmy Nixon right now.
Yeah, this is just a little segment that me and Michael have been talking about adding to the show, and like I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately, and like thinking about where I want this show to go, and I think what we've been missing is just the personal element of it. Like, I feel like we never talk about ourselves really, like, at all. So this is just going to be like a little short segment at the beginning of every podcast where we're just going to like talk about what's been going on with us, and then we're going to get into the sports stuff. So if you're not interested in that, you can skip over it, but I think this is going to add a personal element to the podcast. So yeah, lately for me, I got home from school.
I think it will. I think it will too.
Oh yeah,
definitely agree.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so I got home from school on November 23rd, and that was like the end of the semester for me, because we started the semester a little bit early, and we just like went straight through to Thanksgiving, and then we just that was it. So now I'm just playing golf. I mean, I feel like maybe some of you don't know that I play golf. I never really mentioned that on the show, but yeah, I'm still playing golf, and I play college golf for Bethany up in Kansas. So I'm just trying to train and try to get better right now, and that's pretty much all it is. I don't have a job right now, really. Like, that's all I have going.
Well, I don't have a job either. And my semester isn't over yet. However, this upcoming week is my last week. I have a couple exams, one on Monday, one on Wednesday, and then I'm pretty much done for this semester. So that's good. Other in my personal life, I guess, outside of school, I play a little golf here and there when I can. I went home for Thanksgiving for a week. Was able to spend some time with some family. Celebrated my 20th birthday on Thanksgiving, which was fun. Watched a lot of football, which we're going to get into later. There's a lot to talk about there.
Right.
I'm trying to get on a workout regimen, but it's hard. I don't want to. It's hard, to balance. Because with my golf game, I can't lift too much and still be I don't know if this is for you. I don't know if you lift or not, but for me, I can't get sore because it just doesn't work that way with my body. I can't, it just doesn't work. So it's balancing like the right amount of lifting with cardio. So I'm trying to get into a routine, but it's tough.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's getting colder outside. I can really lock in and try and get in shape, because I played basketball a couple weeks ago and I was dead after a couple games, where usually I can, play more than that. But.
Right. Yeah. Working out with golf is like really I don't know. It's really interesting how that works because for me, like, I'd say probably when I first got to Bethany, like the soreness really affected me. But I feel like now I'm kind of used to it, so it doesn't affect me as much. Like I'll feel it the first couple of holes, but then after that it just goes away. So uh, it's different for everybody, I guess. But yeah, like you said, working out, it's so hard to. Well, for me, it's just been hard to like motivate myself to get up and go work out. So like because it's a whole because I have to
Yeah,
wake up
that's
early and then go work out and then go to the golf course when I'd rather just like wake up and go to the golf course. So I gotta remember to add that to my routine, and that's just hard to implement. So
for me. I kind of like. I'm not a morning person. I'm a night owl, so I kind of like working out. Either in the mid afternoon because that's the time where I kind of peak and start to feel tired and like unmotivated. So I like to get a workout in like mid afternoon or evening to get my adrenaline going again, so I can have the energy to do the stuff I need to do the rest of the day. But that's just what I like to do. I'm trying to get into a routine of like actual like upper body this day, this
yeah,
actual regimented routine.
yeah, exactly.
So I can follow that instead of just waking up and saying, "Oh, I'm going to do this today and I'm going to do this tomorrow." Because if you say that, you're not actually going to do it. But if you have something set in stone, and the way I find it is you gotta reward yourself afterwards. You gotta have something to work towards,
Yeah,
or else it's just not gonna
yeah, you gotta set
work
goals.
out that way. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's actually one thing that I like about being at school. Well, obviously I like it overall, but one thing that I really like is just like the routine part of it. I actually like. I feel like now that I'm home, it's hard. Like every day is different now, so it's harder for me to do the right things every day. To where, and then but at school I have class at this time, practice at this time, and then I know what part of the day to fit the workout in, and that's like when I do it. But now that I'm at home, I wake up at a different time every day, and I'm like, do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? So it's like it's a whole different feel.
yeah. And this to me is really the most exciting time of the year. For me personally, especially, you got the holidays, of course, Christmas nearing right around the corner, and you got. Um, I'm a huge college basketball fan, so that's going on. You got the NFL and the NBA now coming up soon, so all the sports are kind of on at one time, and there's always something going on. There's always something new to watch. Um, the weather, it's not necessarily cold here because I know cold, you have a different definition of what cold is because you've told me before that up there
Yeah,
it's like
up in Kansas gets a little bit more
more than here in Austin. But
right.
for me personally, being in Austin my entire life, this it can get cold here. So being inside more, and that's another thing. Like with the COVID, you hope people are able to get outdoors and um, still social distance and not be inside too much. But you just got to work around that. Luckily, I've already had COVID. Now, it doesn't prevent me from getting it again in the future, but I think immunity lasts a couple months at least, so I think I should be fine for the next month or two. Just
Yeah.
trying to stay healthy. Um, that's the most important thing. Keep your mental health. Make sure you're getting exercise. You're not make sure you're making time for yourself to spend time with your friends, spend time with your family. And I know a lot of you out there that listen to this podcast are probably, as of right now, bogged down like I am with studying for finals and stressed out about this and that. But the most important thing is to take care of yourself, because if you don't, then all the rest is just gonna go to waste. So
Yeah.
I know that's a little bit of a, motivational or whatever speech, or like preaching a little bit, but that's the mindset we all have to have right now, and that's the mindset I've kind of applied to my daily life. So nothing much else to be said, just trying to stay healthy, trying to get myself in shape. I want to, over the break, because I have, up until next weekend and until about mid to late January off from school for the winter break or whatever. So I'm going to try and work on my golf game a little bit, try and get that back and going up, so I can play, the courses around here this upcoming semester, and hopefully keep my grades up, which I'm doing a pretty good job of as of now. But, as you move up into your major classes, get harder, it can become a problem. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much it. I don't know if you have anything else you want to say, but I get into the sports. What do you say?
Yeah. I think we've said everything you said. Just stay safe out there, everybody. So, I liked adding that. I think that was a good little idea we had. So, we're gonna hop right into this sports stuff now. We're gonna start with NBA. This is something I was really excited about. We're gonna do over under win totals projection based on the Vegas betting. I don't know, the betting lines for each team, and we're gonna take the over or the under for each Eastern Conference team today, and then we're gonna cover Western Conference in another podcast. So we're gonna go all through the Eastern Conference, and then later in the show we're gonna get into some NFL predictions for the rest of the year. I'm really excited for that. So, let's just hop right into it. Do you want to start from the bottom of last year's standings or the top?
We'll just go top to bottom.
Okay.
So we'll start with Milwaukee. Milwaukee this offseason, in case you haven't been following, they added Drew Holiday in a trade with New Orleans. So that gives them another experienced all-star caliber point guard, an upgrade over Eric Bledsoe, offensively and defensively, to go with Chris Middleton and Giannis, of course. They also upgraded their bench: DJ Augustine, Bryn Forbes, Torrey Craig, Bobby Portis. So they have some depth. Now they are kind of in the hard cap category. It'll be interesting to see. They do have one open roster spot that they could use, but they only have $442,000 of cap space. That's the amount of room they have before they hit the luxury tax threshold. So it's going to be really tough to be able to add another player. But at this point, I mean, you get Drew Holiday without having to, give up Dante DiVincenzo or Pat Connaughton. You almost brought in
Bogdanovich,
which would have been great, but you still have 3 all-star caliber players in your starting lineup. I think the over-under win projection is sort of low. I know, COVID, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know the injuries and stuff, and I know the Eastern Conference is going to be a lot better. But this team's way too talented to not get to over 52 wins or whatever it is.
Right. The line was 50.5, which it feels really, really low. I think it's over, like, emphatically. If you look at what they go ahead.
I think I'll just say this. I think they're talented enough to win 58, 59, even 60 games in the regular season.
Right. In the
playoffs, that's a different story. But in the regular season, I think they can win a lot of games.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to depend on what they do in terms of load management. I think they were considering doing some different like load management, experimenting with Giannis and some of their top guys. So that would be a little bit interesting. But I think they'll still get to 50. I think that's a really fair to say they'll at least get 50. Last year they won 56, and that was from 73 games. This year it's going to be 72. So I think they'll be in the 53 to 55 win range.
Yeah, I agree.
So go ahead.
I think we both agree right now they're the favorite in the East, but right. Austin's a team that had a really interesting offseason. I actually just learned today that Kemba Walker isn't going to be able to play until sometime mid to late January. He's dealing with some sort of injury. But I still think 46.5 is a pretty low win over-under projection for the Celtics. I like what they did in the offseason. They added a sharpshooter in the draft from Vanderbilt and Aaron Naismith, a guy I think my Spurs were looking at, but that's a story for another day. They did bring in, I believe, Jeff Teague.
Right.
So you got a veteran point guard that can fill in for the time being while Kemba Walker is out, give you some production. They still have Marcus Smart, the two young superstars who are both signed to now long-term extensions in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. We saw what Tatum was able to do in the playoffs. I expect him to continue to get better. And they added to their front court depth with Tristan Thompson, a veteran who's experience in the playoffs, should help out Daniel Tice and those guys, because that was sort of their weakness this past year. So that he's a veteran that should help in that regard. And I think given the trajectory of their young talent, and I know they lost Gordon Hayward, but I think once Kemba gets back and they get going, they also added Peyton Pritchard, a really good.
I really like that pick
from Oregon later in the draft. He'll give them some more depth coming off that bench, and I think we could see an increased role for him, given that they're without Kemba for probably the first month of the season. And then Carson Edwards, Ojale, Grant Williams, Daniel Tice. They're a deep team. Taco Fall, Robert Williams, Romeo Langford even gave them some production last year. I think it's a no-brainer. I think they get to around 50 wins and are probably a top 3 seed in the East.
Yeah, I think they will get over 50 wins. I agree as well. The line is 46.5. I think it'd be pretty fair to say they're a lock for a top 3 seed this year. I think with Gordon Hayward out of the picture, I think they're relying a little bit on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown taking another step. I think they will, though. I think if anything, Jaylen Brown will take the step, since Jason Tatum already took his big step last year, in my opinion. So I think to start the year out, I think you could see a lineup with Marcus Smart at point guard. I think that would be a pretty good lineup as well, with maybe moving Jaylen Brown down to shooting guard and Jason Tatum at the 3 instead of the 4. I think that could be pretty interesting. So I think losing Kemba Walker hurts a little bit, but I think it might actually help them in the long run, because it gives them a chance to maybe experiment with some different lineups. You have the opportunity to maybe move Grant Williams up to the starting lineup, maybe at the 4, or even just like, since Daniel Tice can shoot the 3 a little bit, maybe even move him to the 4. It just depends on what they would want to do.
All right, so with that, let's move on to one of the more interesting teams coming into this season, the Brooklyn Nets. They're bringing back, not necessarily bringing back, but they're bringing in Kevin Durant, who missed all last year with an injury. They have Kyrie Irving. They added Landry Shamet from the Clippers.
Right.
Provide a nice scoring punch off the bench. Joe Harris has been making steady contributions to that team for the past couple of years. He should continue to do that. And then, of course, they have DeAndre Jordan, Karis LeVert, who performed really well in the bubble. I believe he got they did all NBA teams for the bubble, and I think he was on the second team, averaging like over 15, 16 points per game. So he'll be in the starting lineup with Kyrie, Joe Harris, Kevin Durant, and I'm not sure what they're going to do at the center position. I think you probably have to start Jared Allen,
right.
But just with his production last year, he averaged 16 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, and a block per game. But, we don't know what they're going to do. I still have my questions about Steve Nash as a coach. Yeah. I wish I could say push here. I know it's like 46.5. I think I'm going to have to go a little bit under.
Yeah. Mine says 45.5. I think I'm going to have to agree with you. I'll say under as well, but I think the line is actually about where it should be. I think that's a pretty accurate. I think it's going to be around 45, 46, 44, somewhere in there. I think they're going to start a little bit slow, trying to figure out what everybody's roles are, what everybody needs to do defensively. That's like my big knock on this team as of right now. I think they might struggle a little bit defensively, and we'll see what Steve Nash is able to do in terms of. I think his strength is going to be managing personalities in the locker room, because over the course of his career, he was a really underrated leader, in my opinion. Like, he was obviously a floor general, and he could run the offense. He had amazing IQ, but I think he was a really good leader as well. So we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna say under, though.
I would agree. If it was an even number, like 45 or 46, I'd probably say push, but 45.5, I'm going to say around 44, 45 wins. So give me the under, but just under.
Right. I think they'll be around the 4th or 5th seed this year.
In the East.
Yeah, I think they're maybe 1 year away, barring a trade. But, they could make a trade. We'll see. So next on our list, the Miami Heat, coming off an amazing finals run as the 5th seed. They brought back Goran Dragic. I liked that move, and they brought in Avery Bradley on a really cheap deal to maybe replace Jay Crowder and some of his toughness, some of what he does. I think they pretty much stayed the same. I think the big keys was they brought back their key guys, and they're just going to run it back. They gave Bam Adebayo the big contract, 5 years, $190 million, I believe. So I think that was a pretty interesting move, because I think that's going to make it a little bit harder for them to be in the Giannis sweepstakes, which they've been rumored to be in, but that's a whole other conversation for another day. But I think their offseason was good. I think in terms of what I think they'll be win-wise, the line is 44.5, and I think I'll take the over. I think this is the kind of team that is just so good at winning close games. It's hard for me to say under for a team like this, where they're proven to be, have that clutch and that tough mentality. And a team this good defensively, they're going to be in a lot of games.
I agree. I have this team winning in the upper 40s, maybe even lower 50s win-wise. This offseason was just about, bringing back the guys that made the finals run, and maybe adding one or two veteran pieces to help, because this is a young team. I mean, Kendrick Nunn, you had Tyler Hero, and Bam Adebayo. It's a young Duncan Robinson. So it was a young core that made that finals run. I like bringing back Dragic. He was very, very good in the playoffs.
Yeah.
until he got hurt. That's really what prevented the Heat from possibly even winning the finals, in my opinion.
Right,
But
I agree.
I like the moves of Avery Bradley and Mo Harkless. Gives them some depth and some veteran toughness and defense, perimeter defense. I like it.
Yeah, even more of it.
They still have Iguodala, so he's been there, done that. I think Hero, Duncan Robinson, and Bam Adebayo will continue on the upward trajectory. Jimmy Butler is going to do what Jimmy Butler does. So I have them probably winning 47-48 games, being a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference.
Right, I agree. I think coming off of what he did in the playoffs, I think Jimmy Butler is going to be a lot better this regular season because I think in a lot of ways he had a down year in the regular season. He didn't hit the 3 ball. He got to the line a bunch, but his scoring was down a little bit. He got into a little bit more of a facilitator role. So I think this regular season, this time around, he's established himself on the team, on where he is, what his role is. So I think you can see him probably averaging closer to 25 points on good efficiency. I think that'll really push their win total up.
I agree. Okay, the next team, we'll just keep running through these so this doesn't drag on too long.
Right.
This is going to be a longer episode, but we're going to try and keep it to a minimum, as minimum as possible. The 76ers, same over-under win total projection as the Miami Heat, 44.5. I have to take the over here. I think you can make the argument that they might have had the best offseason of any, in terms of it like improving and addressing the weakness of their team. They might have had the best offseason of any Eastern Conference team. Right. They added 2 sharpshooters, Danny Green and Seth Curry. That's what they need after they got rid of all those shooters they had from 2 years ago before last year. Ben Simmons we know he's not really going to become a shooter at this point, but he needs guys that he can kick the ball out to. They need to space the floor, shoot threes. I think they addressed that. There's always the questions about Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, but now with the shooters, you get rid of Al Horford, who's still a pretty good player, but it just wasn't working in this system.
Right.
I think that'll help them. They bring in some athleticism with Terrence Ferguson in that trade. With OKC, I like Matisse Thybulle to add kind of that defensive presence. And they have the talent. And they added I even like the draft pick, Maxey. I think he's a guy who can give them some scoring punch off the bench. Right. So I think they addressed what they needed to. They're now deeper. They're now a deeper team, more shooting. And I think with Ben Simmons, what he can do, facilitating and on defense, and what Joel Embiid is capable of, this team is definitely going to be in that high 40s, low 50s range.
Right, I agree.
Stay healthy. I think that's probably, again, one of the biggest questions.
Right. The health is going to be a big key. I'm going to take the over as well. If you look at what they did, like as you said, they addressed their weaknesses and everything just fits better, just like all the way flowing down the roster. More shooting across the board. And I think a lot of people are underrating this fact that moving Tobias Harris back to the 4 position, his true position, I think that'll help him flourish a little bit to maybe more back to where he was playing for the Clippers. So I still don't think he'll live up to his big contract, but I think he'll have a really solid year playing his true position. So I think that'll help them as well. So I'm gonna take the over here. I'm thinking 45-46 wins. somewhere in that range.
Sounds about right to me. So with that, we will move on. Our next team on the list is Toronto. Do you want to go ahead and start us off with this one?
Right. The line for the Raptors is 41.5. I think I'm a little bit higher on the Raptors than a lot of people are. I think no matter what, this was going to be a really tough offseason for them to keep everybody. I think bringing back Fred VanVleet is a win, in my opinion. Obviously, losing Gasol when I think he would have been, they would have been able to with their cap situation. I think losing him hurt a little bit. It would have been really hard to bring back Ibaka. I think that was okay to lose him, I guess. The big question though is whether they'll be able to replace that center position talent, I guess. And they brought in Aaron Baines and they have Chris Boucher. And I think that's not as much of a drop off as people are making it out to be. I think they'll still be a really solid defensive team. They still have Nick Nurse, who is one of the best coaches in the league. And I think Kyle Lowry, he's still solid even at 35. And I just have to go with, what I've seen up to this point. He hasn't shown much aging up to this point. So I think they'll be fine. I think they'll get the over here and be solid.
The over is 41.5. I agree. I think they'll get the over. For me, I think the X factor here is it's not Kyle Lowry or Fred VanVleet. We kind of know what they're capable of playing together as of now, seeing it all last year without Kawhi Leonard. But OG Anunoby, I think is the X factor. He's the key to unlocking their full potential. I believe his cap hold is almost $12 million. So I think the front office really wants to see him take that next step. And now that he's going to get more minutes, that perimeter defense and then his ability to create offense by himself, not just, off the catch and shoot, is going to be really important for them. But I really like Nick Nurse, top 3 coach in the league. As long as they stay healthy, Norman Powell coming off the bench, I agree. I don't think Boucher and Baines are as big of a drop-off from Gasol and Ibaka as people think. I think Nick Nurse will be able to maximize what he has and get around 43, 44 wins.
Right.
And be, I guess you could say, probably in the playoffs. They'll probably be in them.
Right. I think they'll be a 6 seed, somewhere around there. So I think that's all with the Raptors.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head with OG Anunoby. He averaged, I think, 16 points per game last year. And look out for Norman Powell as well. I think he might add a little bit of scoring punch that they need as well. So moving on, the next team is the Indiana Pacers. Their line is 39.5. For me, this one was a little bit tougher. Obviously, they had they wanted to bring in Gordon Hayward. They weren't able to do that. They're still basically bringing back the same team as last year. The big question is Victor Oladipo. Is he gonna be more healthy than he was coming back last year? So, I think I'm gonna say over, but I think it's gonna be definitely the lower 40s range. I think it's going to be 40, 41, 42, somewhere in there. I have questions about their coach. He's a first-year head coach, and I really liked Nate McMillan. I feel like he was a really good fit for what that team was trying to do. So, I don't know. We'll see.
I really, as you mentioned, they took the conservative approach to the offseason, just basically bringing back the guys that they have, hoping that, they'll stay healthy and be able to maximize that talent. And hopefully those coaches can figure it out. But my big question with this team doesn't necessarily come with the starting lineup. You can see, their starting lineup says playoffs all the way. You got Brogdon, Oladipo, TJ Warren, Sabonis, and Miles Turner. That's a strong starting lineup, playoff caliber starting lineup. My question comes with the depth. TJ McConnell, you have Holiday, Doug McDermott, and then the second-year player, I can't pronounce his name.
Bidatse.
Yeah, so
right.
I sort of have my questions about their ability to create offense off the bench, and I have questions about their depth, but I do like their draft pick, Cassius Stanley, really talented player from Duke. I think he's a little bit of a project, but I think he could give them some contributions, and if he does, then that could really unlock their ability for bench production. But I do have my questions. I do think they're good enough as long as they stay healthy to get over,
39 and a half?
Yeah. So 40, 41, 42, right in that range.
Right.
I think is a realistic expectation given good health.
Right. Next on our list, a really interesting team this offseason, a big player this offseason, the Atlanta Hawks. Their line is 36.5. They added Danilo Gallinari in the offseason. They added Bogdan Bogdanovic. And they bring back, they still have that young core from a year ago, and hopefully they're looking to get some improvement from within as well. So,
they took the exact opposite route of teams like Indiana and Miami. They went out, they were aggressive in free agency. They spent $160 million on additions of Gallinari, Bogdanovic. Those were the two expensive ones. And then they also brought in Chris Dunn and Rajon Rondo, both on cheaper deals to give them some guard depth and some experience, some
defense.
I really like what I'm seeing here. I think the big question for the Hawks is Boyd Pierce's ability to manage minutes, because they have capable players now, two capable players at each position. Point guard, you got Young and Rondo, young guy.
And even Dunn, too. He can play a little bit of point guard.
You got Bogdanovic. You still got Cam Reddish and Kevin Huerter. You got John Collins and Danilo Gallinari. You have Clint Capella. And I really liked what they did in the draft, bringing in Okongwu. He's really talented. They can develop him. Watch out. I think this team gets over 36, but I'm not sure if they can get to 40 possibly. I think they win like 38 to 40 games. I think they did what they needed to. They brought in some experience, some more offensive punch with Bogdanovic. They have defense now with Dunn and Rondo. I think Reddish could possibly take another step in his development. And Gallinari is really nice coming off the bench. So I really like this team. The big question is managing the minutes of John Collins. He's really the biggest question mark on this team because I think he's coming up in a contract year.
Right.
So we'll see what happens with him. But on paper, it looks like they can get over 36 wins. I'm just not sure they can get over 40.
Right.
I think they'll be in that upper 30s range and maybe sneak into the playoffs.
Right. That's right around where I see this team at as well. when they made the Gallinari signing, I had a little bit of questions about what they were going to do with John Collins because obviously Gallinari is a 4 and he's not quick enough to guard threes anymore, and John Collins isn't any good at the 5 defensively. So when the report came out that he was going to come off the bench, it made a little bit more sense. But at first I was like, "Ooh, are they going to trade John Collins?" And I think Gallinari makes it to where they still could trade John Collins because from what I've heard, John Collins' camp is looking for a max contract, and based on Atlanta's cap situation, I don't think they're gonna be able to do that, or if they want to do that, I'm not sure. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that's the biggest question going forward for this team. Do you want to keep Trae Young and John Collins together? So
I agree. Just adjusting on the fly, trying to keep this in as, I guess, a compact manner as possible. I want to talk about the Magic. We have to talk about the Wizards. I think we have to talk about both the Bulls and the Hornets.
And then we can cut it off right there.
Cut it off right there.
Yeah.
No offense to any Detroit Pistons fans, any New York Knicks fans, or any Cleveland Cavaliers fans. But let's be honest, those 3 teams are all going to be high up in the lottery this upcoming draft. So it's just they're in the rebuilding phase.
Right.
So we'll talk about these next 4 teams, and then we'll move on to NFL, and then we'll finish, I guess, with college basketball or vice versa.
Right.
So Orlando Magic. Why don't you get us started?
The Magic, they lost DJ Augustine, and I can't think of anything else really that happened with them. I feel like they were really under the radar as well. I think they took another team that took a safe approach with the offseason. I think with the Magic, the biggest thing is replacing the minutes of Jonathan Isaac. I think you're going to see a lot of Aaron Gordon at the 4, and I think this might be the year where if it doesn't work, you trade Aaron Gordon and then you move on with Jonathan Isaac, and then obviously you have Chuma Okeke coming back from his ACL tear. It'll be interesting to see what he brings, but this is just the same team that they always are. They've always been good defensively, but it seems like they always start slow early in the year, and then they figure it out, and then they start winning games on the fly, like a lot like what the Jazz did for a couple of years. So their line is 32.5, and I can see the Wizards overtaking their playoff spot this year, if I'm being honest. I think I'm going to go under.
I think I agree. It's tough with teams like this, small market teams that you really don't hear a lot about. I don't really know what they did. Pretty much nothing to really improve their roster in this short and brief offseason. We've seen flashes from Markelle Fultz at point guard, but I still have my questions. Fournier is a nice player. Vucevic is a nice player. Gordon's a nice player. But I just don't see it. I think the bunch of teams that are going to be fighting for that potential 8 seed in the East have gone a lot better. They've gone out and made the moves to get better.
Right.
All the Magic have just, sat, still and not done anything. And I think that's going to hurt them more than anything. It's just the improvement of the other teams they're going to be vying for that spot with. But I just don't see it. I think they're going to be under, probably in the high 20s range, if I had to guess. So, that's just it with the Magic. I don't have really much to say. Um,
Right. They added Cole Anthony. I think that was a really good pick. Good value coming. I think after the lottery 15th pick, I believe. I think that was a really good value there. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know much about the Magic, and they really gotta. If it doesn't click this year, I think they really gotta look in the mirror and say like, what is our future? Is it just are we just gonna keep running this team and we're gonna try to sell tickets and make the playoffs just barely and get outed in the first round every year? I don't know. I don't know if that's worth being in NBA purgatory. So
okay. So this might be the most interesting one. The Washington Wizards. Just a couple days ago, they did the swap with Houston. That sent John Wall and a first-round pick to Houston, I believe,
right.
for Russell Westbrook. So now you have Westbrook and Bradley Beal, which is a really nice, talented backcourt. You also have, let me pull up my Wizards notes. I think, what's the line here? We have 29.5. I think they're going to over. I think that's a little too low now that they brought in Westbrook. I like what I'm seeing here. I really like the pick of Denny Avdia. I think they got him at like 9. He dropped a little bit from where he was. I really like that. Whether he starts or doesn't, I think he's going to bring them some experience, believe it or not, because he's been playing professional overseas for a while now. And some defense, some facilitating. So I really like that. I like what they have with Davis Bertans. He took a really big jump last year, being able to stretch the floor at that 6'9", 6'10", and also get to the basket. I like what I'm saying. I think this is a 33, 34 win team, maybe 35 win team. It's just the question really comes down to is, Westbrook's chemistry with Bradley Beal. Can they figure that out fast enough? I mean, Westbrook's really kind of the same player as John Wall, just a little bit older. But John Wall's had, the injuries. He hasn't played much, so Westbrook's the more valuable player. It's just, I think they improved the most out of any other bubble Eastern Conference team that, as I said earlier, I don't have much else to say. Who'd they pick in the draft? Cassius Winston, okay.
Right.
He's a winning player. He's not a flashy player, but he's a winning player. We saw his amazing, what he did under Tom Izzo for 4 years at Michigan State. He kind of reminds me of like a Malcolm Brogdon type.
Like Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, like winning player. He's not going to do anything that's, very smart player, high basketball IQ. They can develop him, kind of Russell Westbrook, take him under his wing and try, because Winston's a much better shooter than Westbrook is, so already. So, I mean, I guess I'm just kind of ranting now, but I think they'll figure it out and win low 30s, maybe mid 30s, 34, 35 wins, and possibly make it to the 8th seed in the East.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I think I just disagree with what you said with John Wall and Westbrook being the same player. I think at this point, like as of right now, I think Westbrook is the better player, and I think he raises their ceiling for sure. But it's just and also a thing that people aren't taking into consideration is Scott Brooks is Washington's coach. So I think Westbrook's going to walk in there and he's already going to know the system. He's played under Scott Brooks, and a lot of people may say that he had a lot of his best years under Scott Brooks. So I think that'll be a good fit in terms of the system. So he'll go in and he'll be, I guess, acclimated really easily. But the question with this team is just going to be the front court. It's just, what are they going to bring defensively? I'm not sure what Thomas Bryant is at this point. He can shoot a little bit, but what is he defensively? He's going to be able to do enough. And then you have Rui Hachimura. I like him. But then off the bench you have Bertans, who I'm not sure what he brings defensively as well. So we'll see with this team. Can they just get enough stops? That's the only question.
I agree. So we'll move on to the Bulls. Chicago, same projection as Washington, 29.5. It's tough to say. They still have Zach LaVine. They still have that front court duo of Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter Jr., which I like. They bring back Kobe White, Otto Porter. I like the draft pick of Patrick Williams. I think that might have been a little bit of a reach, but I think he can turn into a really good I think he has a really high floor, not necessarily a super high ceiling, but I think he has a really high floor. Already experienced player at Florida State. He's lengthy. He can shoot the three. He can create off the dribble, give you a little defense, defend multiple positions. He's a bigger body, so he can do that. I like that addition. I think it could be right around 29, 28, 29. Maybe 30. I think I have to take the under.
Yeah, I think I'm taking the under as well. This team, they brought in Billy Donovan as coach. I like that move. He's a guy who's been able to get the most out of his teams, but I still have questions about Lauri Markkanen defensively. What his fit is going to be next to Wendell Carter. I really like Wendell Carter. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the league. And I think possibly you may see Patrick Williams plugged in at the 4 by the end of the year. I think he'll be a better fit defensively for this team than Lauri Markkanen. Lauri Markkanen might just be a scoring punch off the bench. That might be his role. I don't think he's going to be I think this far into his career, I don't think he's going to turn into a star guy. So I just don't see this team. I don't think they moved the needle that much to where I see them winning over 30 games. So I'm taking the under.
Okay. And then the last team that we're going to talk about for the East, sorry, Detroit Pistons, New York Knicks, or Cleveland Cavaliers fans, as we mentioned earlier, is the Charlotte Hornets, who sort of took a surprisingly semi-aggressive approach to this offseason. They drafted LaMelo Ball, of course, the big storyline, at number 3 overall. And they brought in Gordon Hayward on a huge contract, but, it is what it is. Their over-under win projection is 25.5. I agree. I think it's going to be an over for the Hornets. I think they could win close to 30 games. I like what I'm seeing here in terms of LaMelo Ball. We saw what Devontae Graham was able to do last year, taking steps in all parts of his game. Gordon Hayward, I really like P.J. Washington. He's like the centerpiece of this young core. And then off the bench, you have Miles Bridges and Malik Monk to give you some scoring punch and some defense. I like it. I think they can definitely get over 25.
Yeah, I agree.
30, probably not, because it is still a young team. I mean, aside from Gordon Hayward, who's really a veteran on this team, aside from maybe Terry Rozier. Yeah, but I think it's going to be 28-30 in that range, possibly.
Right. I agree. I think, I think what you said with the win total is right around where they'll end up. I think a lot of people question the move to bring in Gordon Hayward, but I like it. Here's the thing. I think tanking hurts the development of young players more than people realize. If you look at the Sixers, I think the tanking early in Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid's young careers may hurt them down the line and may have been hurting them up to this point. And then teams like the Bulls, who have been tanking and they can't get out of that rut that they're in. They can't get out of it. Like, once you start tanking, it's hard to get out of that mindset. So I think Michael Jordan and Mitch Kupchak, I think, their GM, is looking at this from a standpoint of, we're going to be competitive and we're going to be the best that we can be, so that players are able to get better and maybe learn how to win. So, yeah. So that's good. Oh, go ahead.
Those are our Eastern Conference over-under with the Vegas odds, win total predictions for almost every team in the East. Every team that any logical NBA basketball fan would think have somewhat of a shot to possibly sneak into the playoffs this year in the Eastern Conference. But now we're going to move on. I think since we're talking basketball, it makes sense to just go ahead and get this college hoop stuff out of the way.
All right, yeah.
On the quicker side, and then we can save a really exciting conversation with our NFL early playoff predictions for the rest of the season. We can finish off with that. So that's just real quick. It'll only be like a 10 to 15 minute thing. We're going to pick, and I know the season has already started, but we have small sample sizes on each team. Each top 25 team. We're going to pick, like we usually do every year with college hoops, the regular season championship winners for each conference. We're not going to do Pac-12 today. We'll get more into that as the season goes on. We're going to do Big 10, Big 12, SEC, and ACC. So let's just go ahead and start with, I guess we can start with the Big 10, probably the best conference in college basketball. Right up there with the Big 12. This year, I like Iowa in the Big 10. I think a lot of people don't really know what they're getting themselves into when you hear about Luka Garza. This kid is really, really, really good. I know it's against mid-major competition, but in his first 3 games this year, he's averaging 34 points per game and 10 rebounds on 76% from the field. He's just dominant inside. Now, they're going to be tested here coming up. The Big Ten ACC challenges this week, so they have a tough road game at Chapel Hill against a very talented North Carolina team. And they're going to have to play a very good Iowa State team, and I believe Gonzaga here coming up in the next couple games. But I really like this Iowa team. I look at some of the other elite teams in the Big Ten, the Illinois of the world, the Wisconsins, and the Michigan States. I just think this Iowa team, they're experienced. You have 2 juniors and 2 seniors in that starting lineup, and what do we always say? Experience eventually wins out. Experience and depth wins out in college basketball. I think they're going to win a lot of games in the regular season. Now, when you get to March Madness, everything changes, as we know. But the best player in the country, some backcourt scoring depth and experience with guys like Jordan Bohannon and Connor McCaffrey. both guys that can create their own offense off the dribble. I think Iowa will win the most games and get the Big Ten regular season conference championship. Do you have any thoughts?
For me, I'm between Iowa and Michigan State. I really like Michigan State's team, and with Tom Izzo, obviously he has the track record, and I trust that. But with Iowa, I think when you have such a prolific scorer, especially in the regular season, in the Big Ten tournament, it might be a little different since it's on a one-game basis, one-game elimination. But in the regular season, I think it's going to be hard to deny what he's able to do and what he's able to lead them, and obviously the talent that they have with all that experience. So
that's really what it came down to here for me as well. I really like Wisconsin. I really like Illinois as well, but I don't know. I think the Big Ten's so tough. I think you could see those teams make a run in the tournament, but I'm not sure they're capable of winning enough games to actually win the regular season championship. I think we've already seen Michigan State, they're battle-tested with Aaron Henry in that backcourt. They're bringing some experience back. They lost Cassius Winston, who was huge for that team, and a leader in that locker room. But I think with Tom Izzo, anything is possible, like you said. And we've seen the resilience of that team already. They went to Cameron Indoor and beat a really talented Duke team just this past week. And I know Cameron Indoor is not the same without fans. Duke probably hurts the most in terms of that environment. I've been in that building. It's hard to describe how loud it is because it's so compact and it echoes, the sound echoes, and the Cameron Crazies are, right there when you're trying to throw the ball in. But, they probably hurt the most, but that's still a really good win against a very, very talented Duke team. That's bringing back one of the best players in the country in Matthew Hurt. We're going to find out a lot about Iowa over these next 2 weeks, as I mentioned. They haven't played the toughest of competition yet. Every team they played is outside of the top 250 in terms of KenPom rankings and efficiency rankings, which isn't good.
Yeah.
Playing Carolina on the road, getting Gonzaga and a good Iowa State team. They're going to be tested here, and we're going to find out a lot about Iowa here in the upcoming weeks. So we'll come back to that in the near future. But let's go to the Big 12. They're right there with the Big 10 in terms of depth and quality teams and the number of quality teams in the conference. Obviously, you got Kansas. They're good every year. We've seen Texas. We'll talk about them in a little bit because I think it's warranted what they've done here early on. You have Texas Tech, West Virginia, all these teams. But the best team in the Big 12 is Baylor. And here's why. So far, they were supposed to play Gonzaga today. I was really excited about that, but it got postponed due to COVID. I think they're going to try and reschedule it down the road. I would love to see that. I think they're the two best teams in the country. I don't think it's relatively close. I think it's Gonzaga and Baylor, and then you get into a whole list of teams like the Iowas, the
Villanovas,
the Virginias, those teams. But I think Baylor and Gonzaga are kind of in their own category right now. First of all, with Baylor, you bring back pretty much everybody from a very good team last year. You probably have the deepest backcourt in college basketball. Davion Mitchell, Adam Flagler, MaCio Teague, and Jared Butler, the best sixth man in college basketball, coming off the bench. They can all defend. They can all score in their own ways. Mark Vital inside, very experienced, good defensively. So far, it's short sample size, but they're second in offensive efficiency and eighth in defensive efficiency. And their defense is only going to get better as the year goes on. You can see it. Everyone in their starting lineup can defend multiple positions. They probably have the best mix of guards in college basketball. And this team thrives off their size, their ability to offensive rebound and create second opportunities, either on the fast break or just second opportunities in the half-court offense, kicking it out to all these shooters that they have off those offensive rebounds to create more offense. So I really like Baylor. There are some legit challengers, as there are in every conference, I guess, but I think they're going to win a lot of games in the regular season.
Right. I agree. I think Baylor will take the Big 12 in the regular season. I think, as you said, they're the deepest team, and I haven't seen them play yet personally. Like it's still really early in the season, but I look forward to getting to see them play. I've heard a lot of good things about them. They're it seems like Baylor brings in. I feel like they have a really high priority on bringing in athleticism every year. So I feel like with this team, having them be so experienced and having that athleticism, I think they're finally hitting that point where they're in their development, where they're at that point in their development where they're extremely effective. So they'll be interesting to watch all year.
If you haven't gotten to see Baylor play at the perfect opportunity, it's going to be a week from tomorrow against a very good team out, we think, in the Texas Longhorns. That's going to be a great game. We'll talk about Texas after we get to the ACC and the SEC. In terms of the ACC, it's really tough to say. I think it's really it comes down to three teams, same three teams as pretty much always. You have the Blue Bloods and Duke in North Carolina, and then you have Virginia. Now, the most logical pick to me, because as again, we always say experience, coaching, and depth wins in college basketball. If you look at just those three categories, the edge goes to Virginia. But we've seen Virginia struggle a little bit early on. But I still have confidence. Maybe it's a little bit of a bias here, but, Duke's starting, I think, 3 or 4 freshmen, and so are the Tar Heels. And if you look at Virginia's ability to defend, the addition of Sam Hauser, the Marquette transfer, has added some scoring punch at the power forward position. I think they have one of the best front courts in the country with Hauser and then senior Jay Huff. Their experience, they bring in Rice transfer Trey Murphy, who gives them a little bit of a scoring punch off the bench, some more defense, as they don't need any more defense than they already have, but he just adds to it. And then Kihei Clark is now expected to take his biggest jump at point guard now in his third year at point guard. Obviously, he won the national championship his freshman year, was a big part in that, making that pass to Diakite, a cross-court pass if you remember, in the Elite Eight against Purdue. He was a big part of that championship team. And they have a talented recruiting class. And I think, with all respect to Coach K and Roy Williams, I think Tony Bennett's the best coach in the conference. I don't think there's any question. He does it with less. Less is more with Virginia. If he had all those 5-star recruits that Duke and North Carolina got all the time, who knows what they would be able to do year in and year out. Coach K is an absolute first ballot Hall of Famer. He's great, one of the greatest coaches ever. Same with Roy Williams, but I think it comes down to coaching, experience, defense, the same as always with Virginia.
Right.
I think they're going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out as the year goes on.
Right. I agree. Picking the conference winners for basically, for me, everybody outside of the Big 12 was difficult because I haven't seen a lot of these teams play, but I go with Virginia in the ACC just simply from the fact that I know what they bring year in and year out, and I think that matters in the regular season. We'll see what that will mean for the tournament, because it seems like these young teams like Duke and North Carolina and even like sometimes Florida State as well, they seem to be a completely different team at the beginning of the year than what they are at the end of the year going into those tournaments. So I think I'd pick Virginia based on, I think consistently they're better in the regular season. So since we're just picking the regular season, I think I have to pick them.
I think that's a really good point. The amount of turnover that occurs at Duke and Carolina and schools like that year in and year out, it's just tough to maintain a level of consistency in the regular season. You know, they struggle early. I think a big part of it is Duke and North Carolina schedule harder games in the non-conference just because I think they're expected to. They're two of the blue bloods. I think that might play a part in kind of the early season struggles. But again, with Virginia, it's the same question: is are they going to be able to score enough? We know they can score in bunches when they get hot, but you know, can they do it consistently enough? And are they going to be able to score enough with some of the more elite teams down the stretch? But winning the ACC regular season title, I don't think should be a problem.
Right.
For the SEC, we'll do this quickly. There are some good teams that I think you can make a legit argument for. But what happens with Kentucky every year? They lose a couple of games early. Everyone freaks out. And then by the time late January, early February rolls around, people are like, holy shit, Kentucky's won 9 straight games. They look very dangerous. I think it's going to be the same thing this year. You lost to Kansas. So what? You lost to Kansas on a neutral court. Kansas is one of the premier programs in college basketball. Now, you did lose to Richmond at home, but Richmond, you could see them in the tournament. They could be one of the mid-majors that makes the tournament. They looked really good. And you're starting 4 freshmen. A team that's starting 4 freshmen early this season, they have a lot of learning to do. And I think Coach Calipari has done this before. He knows how it goes with Kentucky year in, year out, with all the turnover that happens. One of the most talented recruiting classes with Terrence Clark, Brandon Boston. A lot of these guys, general like college basketball fans may not know, but you're going to learn these names as you continue to watch, as we enter conference play here pretty soon. You're going to learn these names. These are very talented players. And you get the transfer from Wake Forest to anchor your defense in the middle, the 7-foot center, Olivier Czar. Very talented player that should help them as an anchor defensively and as a scoring presence on the interior. So, you know, I like Tennessee. I like Florida. There are some other dangerous teams, Arkansas, in the SEC, but it's Kentucky, okay? You lost to Kansas. You lost to Richmond. This happens every year. Last year you lost to, who was it? They lost to someone last year too.
I think they lost to like Middle Tennessee or something.
Yeah, something like that. So this happens every year. It's the same movie every year. They're going to figure it out. They have about as much freshman talent as anyone in the country. So they'll be fine. They'll win enough games. They'll win the SEC regular season.
Right. I'm going to have to agree with you. I was looking at teams like Tennessee and like Florida as being really interesting this year, but I think reputation and coaching like as a whole for a program, I feel like that matters a lot. And I'm not saying Tennessee has bad coaching or anything. I just think what Kentucky brings, like as you said, like every year they do. They're similar to what the Spurs always did when they had that big three, and like in those years, 2014, those years, 2015, when they would start the year, they would be okay, and then everybody would have questions like, "Oh, are the Spurs getting old?" Blah 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 blah, and then they would like once they hit like March or February, they would just go into playoff mode and start winning like on a dime all the rest of their games. So it's the same thing. Once they click, and when they do, they're really hard to beat every year. So.
Yep. All right, so I think we real quick should talk about the local team here in Austin, the Texas Longhorns. A lot of questions, personally, for me, with the coaching. I didn't doubt the talent that this team has, but we'll just quick recap. Okay, they beat UT Rio Grande Valley in their first game, easy game. They dominated that game. And they had the Maui Invitational this past week. My biggest takeaway from the Maui Invitational might have been Bill Walton's inability to focus on the game that he's commentating, but that's a whole other story for another day. Texas has been very impressive. A lot of experts are saying this is a top 15 team. We get to see another test tomorrow against Villanova. That should be interesting. Villanova's very good. Big East favorite once again. But offensive efficiency, 19th, and defensive efficiency, what's really brought them to this point at 4-0, beating Davidson, Indiana, and North Carolina is their defense, second in the country right now, ahead of teams like Virginia and Baylor at this point. So, that could change. It's a small sample size, but they're one of the few teams in college basketball that brings back 100% all of their scoring production from last year and all of their rebounding production from last year. Now, I know Will Baker is going to transfer, but coming into this season, they brought back pretty much everybody. And you add the local product, Vandergrift High School, our high school, Greg Brown, who has looked very good early, struggled a little bit with his shooting, but he's been good on defense, really good on defense, and has made his impact felt and his ability to just be a threat. Getting to the rim, we've seen some really nice moves, getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line. I think that's been one of his one thing to harp on here early. Once he starts knocking down his shots, along with the likes of Courtney Ramey, who's already probably the best shooter on the team. You have Andrew Jones. You have Matt Coleman, who's the old man here. And you have two guys that have really stepped in and made valuable contributions, and Kai Jones and Brock Cunningham, kind of the glue guy for this team.
Yeah, I really like Brock Cunningham.
I think it's Shaka Smart's best team. I think that's what I would have probably said if we were doing this before the season started. But really impressive. I think the defense is possibly, if they continue this, they're going to be in every game. They're going to have a chance to win every game as long as they can continue to play fundamental basketball. They can't, do what they did last year and start to, there were a lot of things that played into it, but they started to turn the ball over. They were careless. They didn't really have that drive to win kind of the middle of last year. They went on a downhill turn and lost a lot of games, but then they figured something out at the end of last year, winning 5 of their last 6. And we're fighting to possibly be in the tournament right before COVID hit. So, I think this team could win. Shaka Smart's high. He's been in Austin 5 years. His highest win total is 21. I think they could possibly surpass that if this performance continues. I think they could finish, and I might be being biased, but what I've seen so far, why not? I mean, I think they could. I think this is the year they can beat Kansas with the amount of size they have inside. I think why not finish second in the Big 12 in the regular season and possibly make a run in the tournament? Be like a 4 or 5 seed in the tournament and make a run.
Right. I agree with everything you said. The biggest thing I've watched more Texas college basketball than I've watched college basketball for like the last like year. So I actually know something about this team for once when we're talking about college basketball. And like the biggest thing is just their length defensively. Like people are getting in the lane and they're like you're seeing guys like kicking it out when normally they would just be shooting because they know they'll get stuffed. Like just the length inside, it gets in people's heads and that affects people. It's really cool to see. They're just affecting people and the veterans that they have at the guards position, because they know they have the help behind them to be there to block shots at the rim. So they can be aggressive, get steals, run out in transition, and it's a really good formula for winning basketball. Another thing is on offense, you're seeing a lot more urgency. Like they're making like quick decisions. They're moving with a purpose. You don't see guys just getting the ball and not knowing what the heck they want to do with it. I feel like they have more decisive with the ball, and that's helped them a lot offensively. So I really like what I've seen. I think, as you said, I think they have an outside chance of even winning the Big 12. I mean, you can't count it out. I mean, you still haven't even had a breakout game from Greg Brown yet. I mean, who knows? He might start to click and average 20. Who knows? Like, you could see it happening.
I think if that happens, if Greg Brown, right now he's averaging, I think, right around 9 points per game, and I think 7 rebounds, which is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's still feeling it out a little bit, and hopefully he'll start to knock down more of his shots. I did see him knock down a couple jumpers against Carolina, which was encouraging, including his first three-pointer. But if he can even step up to around 15 points per game, 16 points, maybe even 18 points, not even 20.
Right.
That's huge.
Yeah, that would be massive.
They are still looking for they're struggling a little bit still in the half-court offense, but every team is at this point.
Right. Still trying to figure out who they are.
Exactly. But I do like what you said. I think they have a purpose on offense. I won't say they have an identity.
Yeah.
Because at one moment, it's Courtney Ramian. Another moment, it's Matt Coleman. Another moment, it's Jericho Sims and Kai Jones. But I think they're balanced and they're playing with a purpose.
Right.
And I think that's really the most important thing. So,
yeah.
With that, that's our college basketball discussion. We'll be coming back to this in future podcasts, of course, like we always do. But I think we should wrap this up with our NFL. So Emmy and I, just to set this up, last night, there's 5 weeks left in the NFL season, and congratulations to the NFL, even though I disagree with some of the things that they've been doing, moving these games around, particularly because in some ways it's affected my team more than many others. But, moving some of these games around, I don't necessarily agree with every decision that they've made, but congratulations to Roger Goodell and everyone in making a concerted effort to get these games played, and being determined to finish out this season in due time, I guess. But with that, Emmy and I went in to the NFL playoff machine on ESPN.com last night, and we predicted. Now, this was tough because we don't know, what injuries are going to happen or who gets COVID and who's out for this length of time and all this stuff. But we predicted the last 5 weeks of the season. We predicted the team's records, and the playoff machine has come up with our playoff seedings, what the playoff seedings would be at the end of the season. So I'll just set the picture for you. So in the AFC, Kansas City gets the 1 seed. They win out, win their last 5 games, get to 15-1. They get the first round bye. Pittsburgh loses twice down the stretch, but still finishes at a really, really good 14-2 record. And then you have Tennessee 12-4, Buffalo 12-4. Those would be the 2 teams to also host wild card playoff games. And then you have Cleveland. Baltimore makes the run, sneaks into the playoffs at 11-5. And the Raiders also get the last spot at 10-6. So you would have Las Vegas at Pittsburgh, Baltimore at Tennessee, and Cleveland at Buffalo. So I think let's just go conference by conference. Let's start with AFC, just because I just laid it out. We'll start the 7-seeded. Actually, I'll just run through my predictions, and then you can run through yours to speed this up a little bit. Las Vegas at Pittsburgh. I think we're both higher on Las Vegas than I guess some people are, because I guess the knock on them is they really can't stop anyone. That defense is having some problems, especially in the secondary. They're talented and young in the secondary, but they're having some problems there. I know Pittsburgh the past couple of weeks hasn't really passed the eye test, but in this game, I think they would be able to do enough to win. Just that front 7, I think, would be able to generate enough pressure on Derek Carr to make him uncomfortable, even without Bud Dupree. I think they've shown that they're still capable of stopping the run, being effective enough up front and stopping the run, even without Devin Bush in the middle of that defense. You have replacements like Robert Spillane, who's filling really well. The secondary's playing really well. They allow the least amount of passing yards per game, even though they haven't faced necessarily all the elite quarterbacks to this point. But, you face who you face. I think Pittsburgh would win this game. I think Vegas would keep it close, but I think Pittsburgh's been so good, I don't think they would lose this first week.
Yeah.
Baltimore, Tennessee.
Hey, I think we should go game by game, just so when we're on the game, like, we can just make our points and everything, and it'll flow a little bit, I think.
All right.
So let me just I'll make it quick. I agree with you. Pittsburgh, I think their formula to win games, they're going to control the clock, run the football, play great defense. That formula works in the playoffs. Say what you want about what they've looked like the past few weeks, but going into January and those colder months, their formula works. So I have to go with Pittsburgh. So
Pittsburgh would advance the 2nd seed. So they would get the highest remaining seed of the other 2 matchups in the divisional round, one of which is Baltimore at Tennessee. Here, Tennessee's hitting their stride once again. This is about the time last year where they started to hit their stride on their way to the AFC Championship game, and they're starting to look dominant once again. Ryan Tannehill, 6th highest passer rating in the NFL. He's been really efficient once again after getting that big contract. Really good. Of course, he has the help of the NFL's leading rusher, King Henry, Derrick Henry. And then you have 2 very good, even 3 really good receivers on the outside with A.J. Brown, who sometimes looks like the second coming of DK Metcalf. Like, they are very similar in their big physical style of play. Like, I really like A.J. Brown. I really like Corey Davis. He's been contributing. The question with Tennessee is their ability to get off the field on 3rd down offensively and to be able to generate a pass rush. But they have been better the past couple weeks. And I think Baltimore, this would, of course, be a matchup of the trenches, which would probably win this game. I just like Tennessee a little bit more. We've seen Lamar Jackson struggle this year. Not quite as good as last year. They've taken some steps back offensively. I like Tennessee in this matchup.
I like Tennessee as well, but I think it'll be a lot closer than the game was in last year's playoffs. Simply from the fact that I don't think Tennessee's defense is nearly as good. So I think Baltimore, to an extent, I think they will be able to run the football against this team. I think they played earlier this year. That game was really close. I think Baltimore could have won that game. So I just think the difference in the game is just I don't know if Baltimore is put into a situation where they have to convert on third down throwing the football. I don't know if I trust Lamar Jackson yet. And I think Baltimore's formula, like, they win one way and one way only, and I think in the playoffs it's just so hard to do that.
Right. Yeah, I think Tennessee, even though everyone thinks of them as like a run the football first, control the clock type, conservative type offense, I don't think that's what they are. I think they have the ability to they're really explosive when they want to be. Even against like some of the elite defenses, we saw what they were able to do in that game against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh took an early big lead, but they came back. They scored fast. I mean, AJ Brown's big playability, Derrick Henry has big playability, and even some of the other players on that offense. The tight end, what's his?
Jonnu Smith.
Yes.
Right. So
they're very well. Both these teams are very well coached.
right.
So it's going to come down to situational football, red zone offense, and getting off the field on third downs would be really important in this matchup. But I think Tennessee would win.
Yeah.
I think we both agree. So that would match up Tennessee and Pittsburgh in the next round, but we'll get to that in a minute. So that would send the winner of Cleveland at Buffalo to Kansas City in the divisional round. So in this game, Cleveland, very good season. If they were to get to 12-4, holy crap! I think people in Cleveland would throw a party regardless.
Yeah, exactly.
Of this outcome of this game. I do like Buffalo in this situation. I know that we know that if it's bad weather, Cleveland has the ability to play in bad weather. They've been playing in bad weather for a couple weeks now. And they do have the ability to run the football and get to the opposing quarterback. That front four is dangerous in Cleveland. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are a deadly duo in the backfield. But I think it's Baker Mayfield's inexperience in the playoffs and Josh Allen's experience in the playoffs that this game would really come down to. I think the addition of Stephon Diggs would really kind of be too much for that Cleveland secondary, who I think is like 26 passing defense efficiency or something. I think I saw that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere around there. They're the bottom of the league in that category. I think Buffalo would win, but it is scary. I mean, Cleveland, I think they found the coach.
Right.
It's a question of Baker Mayfield. That's the big question with this team. If he came into that game and was able to manage the game and not turn the ball over, not make any stupid mistakes, if Cleveland could protect him from that pass rush of Buffalo, they could have a chance to win. But I like Buffalo to go on and meet Kansas City.
Right. This was a hard game for me to pick. I saw a stat earlier. It said when Baker Mayfield has a passer rating of over 70, Cleveland is 8-0 this year. So This is a team that has their identity. They know what they want to do. They're going to run the football. They're going to punch you in the mouth a little bit, and then defensively, they have holes, but they're opportunistic. They're able to force turnovers, and I feel like at different points in the season they've been able to be pretty good, but they've just been too inconsistent. And I think that's why I'm picking Buffalo. I think I just trust that Josh Allen is going to be able to make the plays. If you look at last year's game against the Texans in the playoffs, Buffalo outplayed Houston the entire game. It was just Josh Allen that held them back. And now that Josh Allen is there as a quarterback, he's at that point in his development where he is the guy unequivocally. I think the better quarterback play is going to come out on top.
Yeah, and another thing with Cleveland is we've seen Baker Mayfield's ability to beat the Bengals. We've seen his ability to beat Washington. We've seen how he can play against bad defenses like Houston. These teams that aren't necessarily very good in winning a lot of games, but when they went against Pittsburgh, they got mauled. When they went against Baltimore early in the year, they got mauled. And when they went against the Raiders, they were held to 6 points. So good teams, they seem to struggle against legit teams. So I think tomorrow is going to be really telling. A tough game at Tennessee, which I think in our predictions we predicted them to win. But we'll find out a lot about the Browns team, the games that they have down the stretch against winning teams, because that's really, I mean, they did beat the Colts, but that's a good, I think that's a good matchup for them because their front four able to get to a unathletic quarterback in Phillip Rivers. I think, and we're not very high on the Colts. I think we agree on that.
Right.
So, if they were able to win 10, 11, 12 games, Hardy's in Cleveland, regardless of what happens in the playoffs. Just to get back to the playoffs for the first time since 2002. Oh, boy.
Right.
All right. So, that would take us to a situation, divisional round, where Buffalo would travel to Kansas City and Tennessee would travel to Pittsburgh. Get your thoughts on those games?
My initial thought is just that Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes quarterback matchup is intriguing to me. I think that'd just be intriguing to watch just from that standpoint alone. But I think Kansas City is just so potent. It's hard to explain just how crazy talented they are at the skill positions offensively, and then their defense is better this year. I mean, they've had rough games this year. They're beatable, but it's going to take a lot to beat them.
Yeah, it's going to take pretty close to a perfect game to beat Kansas City.
Right.
Just don't think Buffalo has it in them. Playing at Arrowhead, even without fans, Mahomes is going to think Buffalo's defense, they've struggled a little bit. They're not as good as in years past. Patrick Mahomes is on track to be possible another MVP award. Add that to his resume. But yeah, I'd have to pick Kansas City to pull away in that one. Now, here's where I may surprise you.
Mm-hmm.
Week 7, the game was supposed to take place week 4, but they rescheduled it. Pittsburgh and Tennessee. Pittsburgh dominated the first half. Took like a 24 to, I think, 24 to 3 or something lead.
Right.
First half. They were able to shut down Derrick Henry, do what they needed to do to win. But Tennessee came back, and they were a Steven Gostkowski field goal away from tying that game in regulation and going to overtime. And I think if that game goes to overtime, Tennessee wins. Just the way the momentum was going.
Mm-hmm.
So tough to pick against the Steelers because it seems that no matter how bad or how good they look, they just find ways to win. And Mike Tomlin's been here, done that, whereas Mike Vrabel is still kind of new to this stuff in terms of going deep into the playoffs as a head coach.
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh is going to be able to keep Derrick Henry bottled up enough. I think just in terms of what that matchup, what the front seven and against Derrick Henry matchup is, I think with how good their front seven is, I think if they could just hold him to like 70 yards, 60 yards, force them into long third downs, I think they'll be able to win. I think Ryan Tannehill, he's solid quarterback. He's not terrible by any means. He's pretty good, but he's just, I wouldn't ever put him in that elite category where he's going to be able to create plays on third down and create for himself and get outside the pocket and find guys. So if they're able to force them into long third down situations, I think the Steelers will pull it out. But I think it'll be a low-scoring game.
That's really what the first matchup came down to, was the Pittsburgh's ability to convert on those third down situations, their efficiency in the red zone as well. Tennessee doesn't do particularly well on defense in third downs or in the red zone. But, yes, I think that – and special teams also played a role in that first matchup, no question. That's a very underrated part of this game. But, I just think Pittsburgh would somehow find a way to win again. Seems to be the trend this year. They've been in pretty much every situation now. They've been down big to down big early as big favorites in games, and they've been up on really good teams. They played really well against really good teams. They've been in pretty much every situation by now at this point. I think they would win by probably no more than a touchdown.
Right. I just get a different vibe from this Pittsburgh team this year. As you said, they find ways to win games, and it's really just. I feel like every year that we cover the Steelers, they have that hiccup game where they play down to their competition and they lose to, say, like the Cowboys this year, like a game like that. But they found ways to win those games this year. So it's really, I feel like it's no different than any other year they've been good, but they haven't had those hiccup games. So I think it's really just the focus factor. I think a lot of people in that locker room may believe that this is Ben's last year, and I think they're going to be more focused and more, maybe not. I don't think motivated is the right word, but I think you get where I'm going with this. With Ben, like they're going to play for him. So,
and another thing is, they've only allowed 10 sacks total. This year. That's the lowest in the league. So the offensive line play has been fantastic. Right. And they've missed the Castro for a couple games. They've missed even Marquise Pouncey now. They're missing him. They were missing him last week against Baltimore. And they've had some injuries. Early in the season, their right tackle, Zach Banner, went down with a torn ACL. I know Roman Foster retired. He was kind of a key cog on this offensive line for many years, but they found ways to keep Ben upright. And Ben's getting rid of the ball, too.
Right.
He's quickest snap throw time in the league. So they're running a lot of short, slant routes, crossing patterns with a lot of these young receivers, and Juju's come up big at times. Claypool is kind of their deep threat. And then Deontay Johnson's that added speed and versatile slot receiver that you kind of want. So, yes. And that would bring us to the matchup that I think a lot of people want to see for the Super Bowl, Kansas City and Pittsburgh. Here's what I think about this matchup. A lot of people are saying Pittsburgh has no shot in this game. I disagree.
I disagree too.
I think you have a shot, but the difference right now to me seems to be that Kansas City is a juggernaut and Pittsburgh is a very, very good team, but not a juggernaut. I don't know. I don't think that this defense, as good as they are, they lead the league in points allowed, they lead the league in turnovers, they lead the league in sacks again. Now, if they were with Devin Bush and Bud Dupree, might think a little bit differently, but I think it's going to come down to, and there's that guy, over there, Le'Veon Bell, who might, have a little extra motivation for this game.
Maybe so, yeah.
I think, to me, it comes down to this. If it goes past 30, there's no chance for Pittsburgh. But if they can keep it under 30 points scored, I think they have a good shot, but I think Mahomes is too much. They haven't seen it. Pittsburgh hasn't seen a quarterback close to as good as Patrick Mahomes this year. And it's not their fault. They don't make the schedule, but
right.
They played the likes of Drew Lock, Jeff Driscoll, Carson Wentz, who was good, but
Andy Dalton, Gardner Minshew.
Not even Andy Dalton. It was Garrett Gilbert.
Oh, that was right. Oh man, yeah.
I think Pittsburgh would have done better against Andy Dalton because they're familiar with Andy Dalton.
Right.
Garrett Gilbert even was able to move the ball, they just haven't seen Patrick Mahomes yet. And the last time Patrick Mahomes played this defense, tore them apart.
Right. I think they have a shot. I think there's a chance. I feel better about Pittsburgh beating Kansas City than I do about Tennessee. I think that says something. But I think it comes down to Big Ben. What is he going to be? Is he going to be able to take care of the football and be efficient? The biggest thing is Big Ben, and you have to control the time of possession. You got to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. If you can have those long 8-minute, 7-minute drives that score touchdowns, I think they'll have a real shot. But if you get into those situations where you have a couple 3-and-outs in a row, your defense gets tired, and then that speed really hits you, it's over. They'll put up 30 on you in about 30 seconds.
There's a thing. I just feel like right now, I don't really like the style of offense Pittsburgh's playing. They haven't gotten a lot of the run game going, and I think they would need James Conner. He would have to come up huge in this game. He would have to have probably a 100-yard performance on the ground and probably have to make some sort of contribution through the air, which he really hasn't done. With the exception of a couple games, he really hasn't done that very consistently up to this point in his career. I think they could. I don't really question Ben. He's been in these situations before. He's played one at Arrowhead before in a playoff game. he's been in these situations. He seems to be taking pretty good care of the football. He's made a couple careless throws here and there, but he hasn't had the really bad game that we've seen him have in the past.
Right.
The 3 interception, 4 interception, 5 interception games where he just doesn't look good at all. And the offensive line is keeping him upright. So I think we both agree that, Kansas City's a juggernaut and Pittsburgh's a really, really, really good, closest you can get to a juggernaut team. They're just going to, once again, come up a little short because you have Patrick Mahomes on the other side. Not a lot of...
Right. And I find this Chiefs team comparable to what the Warriors were doing a few years ago, where remember when Steph would have those quarters where he would just explode and he would hit 5 threes in a row? That's what this team feels like, and it feels unlike any other team we've ever seen in football. It feels like that doesn't feel possible in football since you're on defense for a part of the game as well, and then those are completely different players. But it feels like that with the Chiefs.
Yeah, Tampa Bay is a really good defense, and what they did, they came out and they were up 17-0 in a matter of minutes.
Right. It was unbelievable.
That's the player I worry about more than anyone, Tyreek Hill. I don't know why, but he just... I don't know if Pittsburgh is... I like their secondary, but if you can pick your matchups.
Right.
With the area of Pittsburgh. So, if you were to get matched up on a more physical, slower corner, maybe a Steve Nelson, or even if, a guy like Mike Hilton were to end up there, over the course of a game, I don't know if you keep up with him.
Yeah, I think Tyreek Hill, as a receiver, he's just really underrated in terms of when you talk about these top wide receivers.
Yeah, he should be up.
He should be up there, and a lot of people don't take this into account. The impact he makes on the game is so large to where even when he doesn't have the ball, he affects defenses so much. He's able to open up those windows for the Travis Kelce's of the world. He's stretching out that defense. So
right.
he makes them really hard to guard.
So this is dragging on a little bit. It's okay. We're going to have a long podcast. It's fine. We haven't talked NFL all that much this year.
Right.
And the NBA's coming back, college basketball's on, so we had to get to all that. But let's just quickly go through the NFC. So the way we have the NFC now is New Orleans finishes with the 1 seed, 13-3. And then you would get Seattle, the 2nd seed. They would host Arizona, who would come in at 9-7. You get Green Bay, 12-4. They would host Los Angeles, the Rams, at 10-6. And then you would have the 5-11 New York Giants. They would host Tom Brady and the 11-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So let's just get this out of the way first. Tampa Bay beats the Giants.
Mm-hmm. I think they do that pretty handily.
Yes. It was the regular season goes out the window when you get to the playoffs. Giants were able to somehow hang close in the regular season matchup, but that wouldn't repeat itself here.
Yeah.
So you'd have Buccaneers as the 5 seed moving on. What about this matchup, Los Angeles and Green Bay? What do you think of this?
This one's probably the most interesting matchup of Wild Card Weekend, in my opinion. Just the matchup of that Rams D line against that Packer O line is going to be so interesting because we see that the Packers, they're a finesse team. When they get smacked around a little bit, they tense up, it seems like. So if Aaron Donald can make his presence felt, those guys, Mbukum and Who is that guy they traded for from the Jaguars a couple of years ago? What's his name? I forgot. Anyway, Dante Fowler. Those guys, if they are able to make their presence felt, they're able to get to Aaron Rodgers with a 4-man rush. We've already seen this Rams secondary is really, really good. So at that point, it will just come down to Jared Goff. So, and I'm confident in Sean McVay being able to break down this Packers defense. I don't think this Packers defense is anything to be afraid of.
I think you might have convinced me into picking Los Angeles. I was originally going to take Green Bay just because at Lambeau, it's Aaron Rodgers. Los Angeles is a dome team. They'd be playing in the cold weather. I still have my questions about Jared Goff, even though I like the weapons they have offensively. But I think you make some really good points that a lot of people have said this in the bigger media, ESPN, Fox, if you watch a lot of those talk shows. I think a lot of people agree Green Bay is a very finesse team. They win certain ways. When it gets physical and they play a really physical defense, really physical teams that can run the football, they struggle. And I think the Rams, it just might be a little bit of a coaching mismatch. I think Sean McVay, even though Matt LaFleur has done really well in his first 2 years in Green Bay, he's 21-6 overall. That's really good. I think Sean McVay, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, there's what it seems like three-headed monster at running back. Darrell Henderson, Malcolm Brown, those guys would probably be able to get something going. I think possibly you could see Los Angeles upset. This could be the upset of Wild Card Weekend that we see every year.
Right.
Los Angeles.
Yeah, that's my pick. It's just it's hard to pick against Aaron Rodgers. We've seen it so many times, him pull off the heroics and just like pulling out a win out of his butt and just like somehow, some way figuring it out. But I think the Packers. The funny thing is, they play at Lambeau Field, but they're the ones that feel like a dome team. So. Yeah, I'm going with the Rams here.
And I think the Rams have the best player in the game, Aaron Donald. We know Aaron Rodgers is really good, but I think Aaron Donald would be able to get to Aaron Rodgers enough. And I like Devontae Adams, but the way Jalen Ramsey and that secondary is performing up to this point this year, if that continues, I think they're going to struggle a little bit.
Right.
All right, so that'd be the 6th seed and the 5th seed advancing. You'd have Arizona at Seattle. This is easy for me. Seattle would win, and it really just comes down to Russell Wilson and the fact that at this point, they're going to have possibly maybe like top 3, you could argue top receiving core in the league. Josh Gordon has been reinstated for the last couple weeks of the season. DK Metcalf leads the league in receiving. Tyler Lockett has his moments, and he's dangerous still. And they've gotten healthy in the backfield. Last year in the playoffs, they remember they had that stretch run where they had a lot of injuries. Yeah. They weren't really able to run the football effectively in the playoffs, but now they're healthy. Carlos Hyde has had some really good games, and you have Chris Carson. I mean, I just don't see how Arizona would be able to pull this off. They did it once, but that was in Arizona, and Russell Wilson made some uncharacteristic mistakes that he usually doesn't. and won't in the playoffs, I don't think there's any question Seattle wins, probably by double digits, given that defense has really come on as of late.
Right. I think Arizona keeps it close early, but Seattle pulls away. The Seattle offense, there's been a lot of talk about letting Russ cook, and like that really like worked early in the year, but then they kind of slowed down a little bit, and now they're getting back to running the football. So now I think it's just starting to level out, and they're starting to find their identity offensively. So that'll be really interesting to see. I think this team is going to be at their best. I think they're going to peak at the right time. I feel really good about the Seattle team. And I think they're going to be at their best being able to get into that play action game and controlling the clock and then giving their defense rest, keeping them off the field. I feel really good about Seattle.
Okay, so we agree. Now, Seattle would get the highest remaining seed. That would be Tampa Bay. And Los Angeles would travel to New Orleans to play the top-seeded Saints.
Right. Rematch of the NFC Championship a few years ago.
Oh, boy.
Oh, man. Imagine that game with fans. Oh, my goodness. Oh.
Bad blood.
That would be wild.
They've hit their stride. And by this point, they'd be welcoming in a Los Angeles team coming off an emotional, victory in Green Bay against Aaron Rodgers. I think it's a possibility, but I think this New Orleans defense is playing all too well right now. They seem to be hitting their stride. I think Drew Brees, they've gotten to this point, and they've gone 6 or 7 games without Michael Thomas, and they're still, whatever they are, 9-2 right now, or whatever it is, sitting at the top of the NFC. And in the past 2 years, it doesn't matter whether or not they have Drew Brees or not. They're 7-0 without Drew Brees the past 2 years, which is, I don't know how, but that's really impressive.
Right.
I think New Orleans would get revenge.
I think so too. I think the difference is this year, I think New Orleans' defense, they've hit their stride, and I think they're better than they were these last couple of years. I think last year their defense was good, but they still had holes and they got exposed a little bit in the playoffs. But I think this year their defense is really, really good. And having Marcus Davenport hitting his stride, they still have Cam Jordan. Their pass rush is really solid. Their secondary all throughout is just like really, really good. Marcus Lattimore, all those guys. And I just think I think this is the game where Jared Goff shows his flaws a little bit. I think, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So Tampa Bay in Seattle. So you have Tom Brady and Russell Wilson. They met in the Super Bowl a couple years back, but now Tom Brady has Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, and Rob Gronkowski, and Ronald Jones, and
Leonard Fournette.
Yes. But we've seen them have their struggles. Seattle, I think at this point, we've said it over and over, they hit their stride. Russell Wilson, I think, makes one less mistake than Tom Brady. He's able to kind of move the chains with his legs at critical times in the game. I think that Tampa Bay pass rush would kind of tire out a little bit, trying to not only chase Russell Wilson around, but I think that running game and kind of slow down that pass rush. I think Seattle would do enough defensively, maybe create a turnover or two here and there to pull this game out. But it's the GOAT. It's Tom Brady, and he has a ton of weapons. So wouldn't be surprised if Tampa Bay was able to do it. But then again, Brady is not used to this. Playing on the road this late in the playoffs, it's different.
Right.
Even without fans. So, I don't know. There seems to be a little tension right now between Brady and Arians. It just seems to be a little bit of a tension in that locker room, and I just like Seattle's. They're battle tested.
Right.
And this squad, a lot of these guys are new and they're still trying to figure it out. I think they're right around where I thought they would be coming into this year.
Right.
We didn't have an NFL predictions episode, but I thought they'd be like 10-6, 11-5 range, maybe 9-7 at worst, and be like a one and done team in the playoffs. I think that's what they are. So I picked Seattle to advance to face New Orleans.
Right. I agree. You mentioned this being different for Tom Brady. I think another thing is I feel like he had that mental factor on all those AFC teams. They having to go to New England all the time and
Right.
play, and even the games where New England went to Kansas City all those times. Like they had that mental factor, that intimidation factor. And this year, he's in the NFC where he's not going to have that. I don't think anybody is scared of this team. I think, and I think the NFC just has better quarterback play as a whole. And I think if Tampa Bay made it to the NFC Championship, I think that might be like Tom Brady's best accomplishment, going to a new team and make it to the NFC Championship. But that's a whole conversation for another day. I'm rambling a little bit, but yeah, I'm picking Seattle. Basically, all the reasons you said, and also, it seems like Seattle, they're able to be more balanced. I think Tampa Bay, they go into the offseason and they draft a running back, and then they run it back. I think they're close. But they need to be able to run the football if they want to win, and they're not able to do that well enough right now.
I agree. If they were to think about this, if this is actually to occur, if Tampa Bay ended up getting to the NFC Championship, and I know things change in the playoffs, but we saw the two matchups between New Orleans and Tampa Bay,
Mm-hmm.
and they were complete mismatches. New Orleans is that team's kryptonite.
Right.
So I don't think it would be, what we saw a couple weeks ago when New Orleans just absolutely drubbed them. It changes in the playoffs, and games become a lot tighter, a lot more pressure and stuff, but I think that'd be a situation where I think New Orleans would definitely hope that they would get to see Tampa Bay.
Right.
And imagine that. Drew Brees versus Tom Brady. Woo!
Right.
They're neck and neck. A lot of all-time statistical categories. That'd be very interesting.
Yeah. Head to head in the playoffs. That'd be wild.
Regardless, you get Russell Wilson against Drew Brees in the NFC Championship.
Yeah. I think no matter what, the NFC Championship is just going to be wild this year. Just in terms of quarterback matchups. Hopefully Jared Goff doesn't come in and ruin that. But it could be Aaron Rodgers and Brady, Aaron Rodgers and Breeze, Aaron Rodgers and Wilson, or Wilson and Brady, or Wilson and Breeze. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yes.
Oh.
So, this is a very interesting game. Seattle, they're undefeated at home, but they have. I know home field advantage probably doesn't really play that much of a factor, but they still seem to struggle a little bit. They haven't looked at like the same team on the road, and this would be the first game they would have to travel. Not to mention across the country, sort of.
Kind of, yeah.
To New Orleans. Who knows? They might have some fans. We know the stadium won't be close to full, but they might have some fans.
Mm-hmm.
But I just have my questions about New Orleans' ability to get over the hump. I think we might have a mental block now.
Right, I think so too.
I think Alvin Kamara is dangerous, and I like Michael Thomas, but we've seen Seattle's defense the past couple weeks. I mean, that trade for Carlos Dunlap has sort of started to pay off now. They're starting to get a little bit more of a pass rush. If they could do that against Drew Brees, I think we know that New Orleans could probably get some sort of pass rush with regards to Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson's mobile and he can move the pocket, move out, and they have a ton of weapons. I think that's the difference. Drew Brees really can't do that. And I just like Seattle's ability to be physical and to run the football. And I like Russell Wilson to get back to his third Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Oh man, it's so far in the future as well. So it's so hard. Like there's so many factors. Like you can question Breeze's health even. Like how much is like the ribs gonna affect him? Like, I mean, that's an injury where it could be hard for him to breathe for a while. And a collapsed lung. Like, wow, like that's wild. And I think that might play a factor. And who knows what could happen? Injuries can happen, and COVID. So I just feel more confident in Seattle in overcoming situations, because I feel like New Orleans has had so many heartbreaking losses these last few years, and I don't know. It's just hard for me to trust them.
Yeah, you mentioned it. We don't. This is fun. What we're really doing is we're breaking down what we've seen from these teams. We're forecasting. It's hard, but it's fun.
Right.
That's why we're having this discussion. So we both sort of agree it's going to be Kansas City, maybe Pittsburgh, possibly, against Seattle, or New Orleans, most likely, in the Super Bowl. But we both have Kansas City and Seattle in the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes against Russell Wilson.
Yep. Winner of this is the real MVP. Let me tell you. Ooh.
I can predict this. It is really hard.
Yeah.
Regardless of who you are, to repeat as Super Bowl champions. There's a lot of things that could happen, as you mentioned, between now and then that could affect this. But, I don't know. I don't think I can give you my pick just yet on this game. It's tough.
Yeah, I think Kansas City would be the betting favorite, but oh my goodness, if the over under, like no matter what the number is, I'm taking the over. This is gonna be a wild, like high scoring, like this like if this ends up being the matchup, this game might set records in terms of scoring in a Super Bowl, which would be fitting in terms of what this season has been like in terms of scoring. So that would make sense.
It definitely has that type of feel to it. The Seattle defense is still vulnerable. Even though they're playing better, they're still vulnerable, and that doesn't necessarily bode well against Mahomes. But there's not a team in this league that really fares well or matches up well with that Kansas City offense. I mean, there's a couple teams that have a shot, but the goal is to possess the ball, to get to. This is really what it comes down to: is can Seattle create pressure with their front four? Can any team create pressure, consistent pressure, with their front four and actually get Mahomes on the ground?
Right.
That's really what it comes down to in my mind. I don't know if they would be able to do that.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes' mobile ability, and as well as, I just think Kansas City's offensive line is really good as well.
I really like both of these young quarterbacks. I really want Russell Wilson to get another Super Bowl.
Yeah, I honestly would be pulling for Russell Wilson in this game.
But, wow, I mean, Andy Reid goes from struggling in the playoffs, not being able to get over the hump, to possibly repeating as Super Bowl. I mean, that is insane.
Yeah, that's wild. I think Seattle would have a good chance from the standpoint of they're just going to say, like, frick it. We're just going to try to outscore you. I mean, we're not going to stop you, so let's just try to outscore you. Let's see what happens. They're going to go balls to the wall on offense, and I think that might help them. Like, I think in a lot of ways, teams against Kansas City, they're taking this like conservative approach where they're nickeling and diming, trying to burn clock, keep Mahomes off the field. But in a Super Bowl, it's one game and it's not like in a situation where it's like a series, like other sports. So they're just going to go balls to the wall and just get after it, I think.
There are a ton of storylines, though. Like, I know we went through all our predictions and we're trying to forecast, but think about all the storylines. Okay, first of all, think about all, like, the potential, like, Breeze. This is probably his last year.
Right.
Can he get the Super Bowl? And if he can, he'd be facing either Roethlisberger or Mahomes. You have Seattle trying to get back to the title game with Russell Wilson. You have Tom Brady on trying to go to the Super Bowl in two different conferences. Something I don't know if any quarterback has ever done that. I have to fact check that, but
yeah,
it doesn't seem like many quarterbacks have been able to do that. Aaron Rodgers, could we see a rematch of the 2010 Super Bowl where Pittsburgh somehow beats Kansas City and they face off with Green Bay? Could we see a rematch of that? The last time the Super Bowl was in Tampa, it was the Pittsburgh, Arizona, I believe, Super Bowl. So they've been here before, and that would be interesting.
I just thought of something funny.
Huh?
I just thought of something funny. You know how the Giants, when they won their 2 Super Bowls, they had a really like trash record going into the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean,
the Giants, what if they like shock the world and win 4 games in a row? Wow. Daniel Jones, Super Bowl MVP.
COVID, could screw, like, who knows? COVID could overtake Pittsburgh and Kansas City, knock out everybody, and
all that's left is the Giants.
Cleveland versus the Giants in the Super Bowl.
Oh man,
Jones. Yeah. So nothing would surprise us.
Yeah.
But the playoffs are going to take place in 2021. So new year, new times, hopefully.
Yeah. Maybe things will be even more weird. Who knows?
Yeah, there's so many. So many storylines. Wow. So it's a long podcast. I think when we post this, we'll put like the time marks or like the so you can skip to what you want to hear instead of listening to a full 2-hour episode.
Right.
For that, we'll put like the
timestamps
each topic if you want to listen to a certain part. But that's going to do it for today. We covered NBA over-under win totals. We did some college hoops, and we forecasted NFL predictions. So we will continue to cover the NFL as the playoff race continues to heat up. We'll continue with our preview of the NBA season here coming up soon with the Western Conference up next. Boy, is that a bloodbath. And college basketball is going to heat up here pretty soon with conference play starting up. So we've got all that to cover. But episode 49 is complete. And we'll see you in the next week for episode 50 of the Raw Prospect Podcast. Do you have anything you want to say before we sign off?
Nope. Yeah, I think this is one of our best episodes, man. This was really fun. Yeah, that's it, y'all.
Just like, subscribe.
Oh yeah, all that. We always forget to do that. Anyway, yeah, like, subscribe, share. You know, I don't know, whatever you want to do. I can't control you. Do what you want. Peace.
Amy Nixon. Okay, peace.
Yeah, peace.